Well, after how much I unexpectedly loved Magicians, I figured, hey, I gotta try Grossman's next book. Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video, we're going to be talking about The Bright Sword by Grossman. And this is very different from The Magicians, but it's one I've still been really curious to try, like I said, because of the fact that I love Magicians. Now, I talked about when I did the review of the first book and talked about the series, that was such a surprise for me. Everything I had generally heard about it just did not sound up my alley. I didn't think I would enjoy it. And so because I knew this was that same author, I'd seen this book around, but never bothered to pick it up because, again, didn't think it was going to be for me. So after loving The Magicians, I had the exact opposite where I'm like, I know this is super different. This is Arthurian legend type of stuff. I got to pick it up and try it just because I really enjoyed what this author did with that series. And so wanted to give this a shot. And I think ultimately, if you like Grossman's style in The Magicians, you are likely going to enjoy this too, but also this is probably going to work a lot better for people who didn't really care for some of the elements, specifically like the characters and some of those things in The Magicians, because it's a lot easier to root for the characters we get in The Bright Sword for the most part, and also it's definitely more so on the traditional fantasy side, whereas The Magicians is quite its own unique type of thing, and is, in real world and all that type of stuff here. And The Bright Sword, of course, because it is Grossman, it's not just a, typical traditional type of Arthurian legend tale. This starts with Colum, who is a, promising potential young knight, and his goal is to make it to Camelot and earn a role at the Round Table. But he gets there and finds out that he's too late. Arthur has just recently died. Most of the big heroes and legendary knights are gone, defeated, or just away, gone, dead, whatever. And now it's just sort of the remnants and the cast-offs and the last few people around still, and they're trying to just pick up the pieces and figure out how to move forward with Camelot and move forward with Arthur and all of these heroes gone. And so it's the tale of kind of the others. And I think that's such an interesting thing to explore in fantasy in general. Recently I read Kate Elliott's Witch Rose Duology, which was kind of doing something similar where it's like, hey, this is the, the spirit carriers, just the other people, the less important people and how they take it. And here we're doing something similar where we're still doing our Arthurian style quests, and we have all of the big epic fantasy things. You have your duels, you have your fairies, you have your big quests, and a lot of the stuff that you expect in Arthurian legend, but instead you're dealing with these just other people, not your typical type of heroes. And you will see some familiar characters at least as well here too, like the more well-known ones, sometimes in different ways. But you have Morgan Le Fay, and you have Nimue, and Lancelot, Galahad, and like some of the big names there too, like I said. So you still get that, in Merlin, of course. But it is really a different take. It has some of that style from Grossman, where there's a little bit of a sarcastic take to it as well, but more so than that. And when I think Magicians, and it just doesn't work for some people, it's totally fine. But I think what some people get wrong is that it's not like him just taking the piss out of it. There's a deep love for these types of stories, and part of what he's doing is just dissecting the stories and coming at it from a different angle. And there's a lot of that here. It comes off less sarcastic, but there's still some of that dry wit in there. But it's him sort of exploring the idea of these types of Arthurian legend and stories. In the afterword too, he talks a little bit about how this is one of those ones where it's going to have the anachronisms that you get in most Arthurian legends, because the truth of the matter of what would have actually been happening is just not something you typically see in a lot of them. So this is taking some liberties and having some of those elements that, if you were trying to be really historically accurate, would not be there. I think he calls that too. The Winter King by Bernard Cornwell is supposed to be one of the few actually fairly accurate with what it would have been realistic for the time period types of Arthurian legends. This isn't that. This is more so what you think of the classic Arthur type of stuff, where you have the knights and they're male and going off on quests, and the swords and the kings and the castles, and it's just all of that type of stuff. But again, explored in a slightly different way. And while Colum is presented as the main character, and in some ways is, you spend a lot of time in this book exploring the backstories of these other knights, some that might be somewhat familiar, some that might not be, but exploring them. And they're all kind of messed up and broken in their own ways as well. And so it's that idea of seeing these, people that they're not the important ones, they're not the heroes, they have their own problems, but they're trying to step up and do what they can and just figure out what they're going through and how to move forward, how to find another king. It does a lot of the exploration of, like religion versus, the druids, the fairy, all of these things, how it all works together there too. And some of those ideas are explored here as well. But it also goes in, it feels like it's very much leading up to some certain elements too, and it doesn't go in necessarily the predictable ways, but it does such a good job of balancing that, and I think that's what Grossman did in The Magicians too, in different ways as well. It's where you can tell there really is a deep appreciation for these stories, but it's also not having things happen in the way that you would expect. It's exploring the ideas at the center of a lot of these stories and coming at it from sometimes a little bit more of a biting place, but also is exploring these ideas and sort of dissecting them within the story. And I think he does a really good job to it. So I did really enjoy this. While it didn't really hit the heights as The Magicians did for me, I feel like The Magicians for me was a little bit more I guess relatable because of the fact that it was more normal people versus going back to Arthurian legend. So maybe that's part of what pulled me in. I do feel my main critique here is I do think this is a little bit long. And granted, it looks way bigger than it is. I will say, if you see a paperback version of this, it is like actually not nearly that big of a book. The print is pretty big in this too, if you can see that here. So while this in hardcover is nearly 700 pages, it's not quite that long, but it does feel like there are some parts that meander. But again, I kind of feel like some of that is just Grossman's style. He likes to do that and go off on his asides, and especially the nature of this where you're at different times, you're spending sometimes multiple chapters at a time getting a different character's backstory. It depends how much you care about those characters as well, and if you're really interested and pulled in. And some of the backstories I found to be really interesting, and with the way that they worked and were handled, and others were just a little bit less interesting. But overall, I found this to be a really, really just solid read. And Grossman is definitely one of those authors that I'll be curious to see what he does next. And even if whatever he comes out with doesn't sound like it's for me, I feel like he's earned enough of my trust at this point that I'm going to just check out whatever he writes. Down to he's got some children's books that I'm kind of curious for. I'm gonna have to see like what age range they're for, and maybe I'll get those for like when my daughter's a little bit older. But it's just one of those authors where he doesn't have like a huge body of work or anything, but I'll be curious to see where things go because he's so far he's managed to keep me very entertained in his very different stuff. I think, like I said, even if you didn't like The Magicians, this one might be worth a try because it's definitely a lot easier to get into and root for these characters than the characters in The Magicians. And also, if you like Arthurian fantasy and legend and you want to see a different take on that told in a little bit of a different way, I think this is definitely that. Partially, I think with the length too, it's trying to be this nice big new Arthurian epic coming at it from a different range. And I think there's so much you can do with Arthurian legend and stories, and there's a lot of stuff that has been done by many people, of course. And so to be able to tell that, have some familiar elements, but also recontextualize some stuff, do your own unique thing, tell some different stories while using familiar elements. I just think this is a really nice way to accomplish that. And I think Grossman does a great job here. So let me know your thoughts on this. If you've read this or are planning to read it, I would definitely be curious to hear from you. I don't feel like I've heard a lot about this. Like I said, I'd seen it around, but I feel like it's one of those things that maybe just I don't know if I totally missed it, but I feel like I've seen very few people talk about this, and maybe it's just because if you didn't like The Magicians, maybe you didn't want to check this out, similar to how I was. So let me know because I would be curious to hear more thoughts from people on this. So let me know if you have read it in the comments down below. Of course, make sure to give the video a like if you enjoyed it. Check the links in the description as always for the Patreon if you want to support what I do, as well as the Wizard of the Enclave Discord if you want to chat books, whether this book, other books, really anything at all. It's a lot of fun and we'd love to have you. And of course, if you enjoy my content, make sure to subscribe.